Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Good evening everyone and good morning everyone. Today it is day 98 of Monday Sutta discussion. We're probably changing our discussion series at 100. So I'm planning to give you a brand new series when the 100 is complete. So we have 2 more to go. So stay tuned for that as well. In today's talk, I'm going to be talking non-judgmental judging. Now, even talking about judging is a judgment, right? So this is also a judgmental thing. So we have to be careful. But is there something called non-judgmental judging? That is what we are talking today. So I'm going to be using a sutta called Paṭisota, which appears in Anguttara Nikaya, number 4, 4th section, 4.192. You probably can click on the link in the description post. Okay. So I have to talk about the sutta as well as the non-judgmental judging. So I'm gonna be going over what is judgment and how judgment arises and all that first, and then jump into the sutta and then the general teachings about how we can practice non-judgmental judging. Dhamma folks, we have a tendency to judge, right? So we have a tendency to be judgmental all the time. So what is judgment? Judgment is our ego's primary reaction to a situation that causes it to feel challenged and or threatened. It's like a fear-arisen response to a situation. Now the thing is, because we have a tendency to judge, what we always think is that we are right, we are correct, we are not wrong, we are not making mistakes. On the other hand, we all know that we all mess up. You mess up, I mess up, but the difference is by degree. But the problem is, when we mess up, we kind of downplay that messing. But when others mess up, we amplify that mess created by other people. See? So when we mess up, we downplay on that. We downplay our mess. And when others mess up, we kind of, amplify that mess. That is our nature. Also, we have a tendency to minimize the pain that we cause others. But we have also a tendency to maximize the pain others cause us. So it is always, we minimize the pain we cause others, and we maximize the pain others cause us. So this is the fundamental nature of us in terms of judgment. And also, we believe that what we believe is the truth and what others believe is not the truth, right? I mean, this happens to many. Even you are a Buddhist, you might think the Buddhists are the best and the Christians are not, and the other religions are not, and we are the best, we are the right people, we are the most correct people, and the rest is not like that. Judgment. So when I talk about judgment, so how can we practice non-judgmental judging? I wanted to tell you kind of some fancy aspects of not being judgmental. So first, I pick this aspect called uh, asymmetric insight. So it's kind of a fancy word. What is asymmetric insight? Now, asymmetric insight when it comes to judgment is, now we always think we are very deep and mysterious, but others are, shallow and predictable. So we always think we are what you call deep and mysterious, but others are shallow and predictable. So this is called asymmetric insight. This is one of the aspect of being judgmental. The other side of being judgmental is the hindsight bias. Hindsight bias. What is hindsight bias? When we hear information and once it makes clear to us, we sort of think it resonates, the information resonate with us, and information does not resonate with other people the way that we process, right? So that is hindsight bias. I mean, these two aspects, they are very connected to being judgmental. Asymmetric insight, wherein which you think that you are deep and mysterious, and the others are shallow and predictable. When it comes to hindsight bias, you think you process information and things make clear to you better than other people, and you know everything others don't know. Maybe you understand very well, but not the others. So this is a good place to understand what is the basic nature of judgment. Okay, so now let's come back to our normal life, day-to-day life. We always go through our days judging our experiences, other people, ourselves, and almost everything. Now, even we are judging now, you are judging now at this moment. And when it comes to social media, you like whatever you like, and you like sort of posts, comments, websites, people, celebrities, right? Those of them who you like, and you just like and stay at the mind level. You also go on to give a thumbs up or thumbs down to places that you really like, and you rate, you want to rank, and all that. This thinking is ingrained, hardwired within us. This whole thing happens because we are naturally judgmental. Okay? But none of us thinks that people are different. People have a reason to be different. I mean, if you take a moment, if you step back and think that why they are differently, expressing their views, why they are different than me, and then you will understand. If you take a time, if you take a moment of silence, as we talked the other Monday's talk, you will understand there is a reason. There are reasons for them to be different. And if you are sort of curious about why they are different, you will not be judgmental. This is one of the best way of looking at judgmental side and non-judgmental side. But Dhamma folks, you have to understand that even though we calm down, we embody our discernment. Now, this is kind of a word we call with self-awareness. It's another level of judgment, but we are not trying to, view other people similarly. We try to view other people differently, right? So I will explain to you more about that. Now, it is always when you judge, you become a person to blame someone. Now, we understand that now this desire to blame on others, now this is the root cause of being judgmental. Now, this desire to blame on others, this stems from our inability to deal with our own fear. So we have lots of fears, but we don't try to work on our fears, but rather we trying to take a stand where we are defensive. We are trying to say we are correct, you are wrong. So this is the nature of judgmental people. Now, when we look at the Buddhist teachings, we understand that there are four reasons, four causes why people are into judgmental, aspects. So one is rupapamana, which means outward appearance, because there are other things that you can see from external aspects. That is one cause of your judgments. And gosappamana, that means opinion of others. So you kind of like conflict with others' opinions. That is the second reason of why you can be judgmental. Lukappamana, economic status, and you might be curious, and especially curious in a difficult ways to judge. And you can also judge about the reality, Dhamma pamana. So this is a place where we understand four causes of you being judgmental. But we have to understand this normal judgmental nature is no good. That clearly clouds us in looking at the reality of people, situation, everything, every phenomenon. So that is not good. So what we have to do is we have to transform our judgment into non-judgmental judgment, because we can get rid of judging. We always have a judgment, but we should not make it in a way to cloud our reality. We should bring it to discernment. Discernment is a higher level, higher positive level of your judgment. That's what we have to do in terms of judging. And there's a common mistake that all judging is bad, which is wrong, right? We can't say all judging is bad, because we may need to judge in a certain way, but not to make it to a point where we cloud our understanding, where we cloud our reality, right? Or where you cloud your reality, the eligibility of senses to see the reality. Now, for example, what happens to most people who judge is that they choose one or the other. Now, as Buddhists, we have to be very careful in choosing one or the other, because as spiritually speaking, you have to look at the both side of everything. That is where you will see the truth. Now, a lot of people, they try to choose one or the other, and then they get stuck. They only stick to this person, that person, and then to this choice, that choice. So it's like always between, likes and dislikes, attraction and aversion, praise and blame. And it's all about, a struggle between likes and dislikes, attractions, aversions, praise and blame, right? That's when we do not understand how to stay in the middle. So you have to understand that the path of liberated judging is upekkha, equanimity. That is what we are trying to transform our normal judging into discernment, and the end result of that liberated judging is upekkha. So you stay in the middle, you are not choosing one or the other. So you are not trying to attach to one side or the another. You are trying to stay in the middle. You're really looking at the reality, because when you are in the middle, you can see this side and that side. If you are just stuck to this side, you won't see the other side, because you think that this is the most important truth. So it's really interesting. Okay, so what are the things that can happen when you are so judgmental? Okay, so when you are judgmental, your judgmental nature will direct you to two sides, outwards and inward. So then what happens? That results in a lot of anger situation, defensiveness, aggression, shame, and guilt. None of these, is good, because we don't need to be in anger, we don't need to be in defensiveness, we don't need to be in aggression, we don't need to be in shame and guilt. So this is what happens when you are judgmental. Because what you do at the end is that you embody anger, you embody judgment, because you never know the both side of any issue, right? That's why even the Buddha left the temple, right? The monks started quarreling each other, right? Some monks said, this is the truth. They were having some issues about some of the activities in their washrooms. So the Buddha advised some monks, they wanted to be Vinayadharas, they are more into discipline. Some monks, they were more into Dhamma. So the Buddha said, you should not take a side. You have to, you need both Dhamma and Vinaya, right? You can't take one or the other, right? So that's an interesting point to think about, the basic nature of judgment. Now, let me take you to the sutta. Now, you might perhaps be puzzled why I chose the topic non-judgmental judging, and then how I'm going to connect this to today's sutta. Now, Tana Sutta, which appears in Anguttara Nikaya, 4th section, 192, 4.192, is a place where we understand that Buddha asks us to practice non-judgmental judging in 4 ways. Let me read for you. Chattari mani bhikkhave thanani. Chatuhi tanehi veditabbani. Katamani chattari. These 4 things can be known in 4 situations. What 4? Samvasena bhikkhave silam veditabbam. Tanchako digena adduna na ittarang manasikaruto no amanasikara panyavata no duppanyena. Samvasena bhikkhave silam veditabbam. Now we know sila, right? Virtue. Now, you can get to know a person's sila or ethics by living with them. Now, there are people who want to judge other people, okay, just because how they see other people, their behavior, right? Buddha said, no, that's not a proper way of being into non-judgmental judging. So, Buddha said, you can get to know a person's sila only by living with them. So, never ever try to judge about other people's sila. And of course, we don't need to worry about what other people are doing, right? We should never worry about what other people are doing. We should only worry about what we're doing, right? But if you really want to understand whether other people are into sila or not, don't just come to a conclusion that this person doesn't have sila or this person has sila. Rather, you need to stay with them for some time. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or maybe for a long time. You should not come to a conclusion that this person is really good in sila. Buddha said, you can get to know a person's sila or ethics or, precept side of his life only by living with that person. Other than that, never ever come to a conclusion. Not only that, Tanchako dighena adduna, but only after a long time. It takes time. Because people get changed over time, right? Na ittarang, not casually. This is what people are doing. They decide on other people casually. You can't decide people casually. Manasikarota no amanasikara. Only when paying attention, not when inattentive. A lot of people, they try to decide on other people when they are not really mindful, when they are not really attentive about what other people are doing, right? Now, for example, I want to share with you. You go to a restaurant and then you expect the most desired service from the people there, but you don't get it. So you try to blame at the sort of like the person who is serving you. But after a few minutes, you get to know this person's somebody passed away. Maybe his parents passed away. He has a problem or something, and you get to become compassionate after that, right? So that's why you have to take time. Don't try to, blow your trumpet. You don't try to, pick on these people. You never know. This is one reason, one kind of example. Another example, this is kind of a very famous example. Somebody, somebody is on a walk, and then he finds a dog in a forest area, and then he wants or she wants to, pet that particular dog, and then right away, immediately, when he or she is trying to, pat on that dog is trying to bite this person, and then she is getting really angry about this dog, try to pet this dog or try to pat, but at the same time the dog is trying to bite. And when she takes time to look at what's going on, she gets to see that the dog is trapped. The dog is trapped somewhere, and then she gets to understand dog is suffering here. Then being compassionate. See, the first response is a big judgment. That's not good. That's why never ever try to decide things right away. Take time, especially when you want to know other people's virtues. Take time. Don't decide one day, 2 days, maybe a couple of years, maybe a long time. It takes many years. It takes a long time to understand the sila, virtue part of other people. Now, virtue means good people. If you want to call someone a good person, you should take time. You should not say it casually. This is a good person. How come you're going to say that? You should take time. That's why Buddha says you should take time. If you want to make a kind of a impression about that person in your mind, make that impression only when you are attentive, not when you are distracted by other things. Also, panyavata no duppannena. You cannot decide someone's sila by not being a wise person. You have to be a wise person. Wise person is a particular individual who always acts, with wholesome activities, who speaks with wholesome words, who thinks with wholesome thoughts. So this is a wise person. So you have to be a wise person to decide this person has sila or not. See, there are a lot of requirements. So Buddha kind of like, lays down all these requirements for us to understand. Don't try to be judgmental. Take time. This is why there are a lot of requirements before someone, jumps into a conclusion. Number 2, Sangvoharena bhikkhave socheyang veditappa. You can get to know a person's purity only by dealing with them. There are people who might want to understand this is a very pure person, very, very pure. But Buddha said, don't say that. You need to deal with them for some time. And there are information details and in how you can do that for 4 of these, things where you should not be judgmental. Even not by taking time, you need to decide that only when you are attentive, not when you are not attentive. Also, you need to be a wise person, not an unwise person, to decide this person is pure or not. It takes time. Number 3, Apadasu bhikkhave thamo veditappu. Thamo. You can get to know a person's resilience in times of trouble. What is resilience? Bouncing back. We all fall prey to some situations in our life, sometime in our life. But don't worry, we always supposed to bounce back. We all have to be resilient. But if you want to understand how resilient is someone, then you have to see how that person is dealing with a particular trouble. Otherwise, you can understand how resilient is my friend, how resilient is this individual. You need to understand that that particular thing, what you call resilience, only when you can observe how that person is dealing with trouble. So troubles must come to that person so that you will understand how resilient that person is. Number 4, Sakachaya bhikkhave panya veditabba. This is where you decide on someone's wisdom. Now, wisdom is such a big deal. That's why I'm going to, emphasize a little bit more. You can get to know a person's wisdom by discussion. But now you might understand, you might just, guess, discussion, kind of a discussion. No, it's a different type of discussion. There are a lot of other things involved in this discussion, but we'll see. But only after a long time, not just in one discussion. Keep going, many discussions, maybe for a couple of years. Not casually. Only when you are attentive, you can think about, you can decide this person is wise. Not casually, not when you are inattentive. And you need to be a wise person to decide that this person is wise too. Okay, now let's get into the details of these 4. Talk about checking someone's sila, ethics, checking someone's purity, checking someone's resilience, checking someone's wisdom. Okay? Let me read the Pali section about the first. How can someone understand someone's sila, virtue, without a judgment? Ida bhikkave puggalo puggalena saddin vasamano evam janati. Digarattanko ayamayasma kandakari, chiddakari, sabalakari, kammasakari, santatakari, santatabuddhi silesu dussilo ayamayasma nayamayasma silavati. Now, this is a proper way of, understanding how virtuous is a particular person without being judgmental. Now, these 4 are places where people can be judgmental spiritually. They will be judgmental based on spiritual aspect. That's why Buddha asks us to stay neutral and to understand the proper way of understanding other people without being judgmental. Okay, the English translation goes this way. Okay. For a long time, this individual's activities have been unbroken. Here. For a long time, this person's activities have been broken, tainted, spotty, and marred. Their deeds, activities, and behaviors are inconsistent. This individual is unethical, not ethical. This is if you notice your friend or other person this way, in case that person doesn't maintain the sila, then you will notice these things. But if that friend, your other person, that the person you are trying to observe could be the opposite. This individual is ethical. His deeds have been unbroken, impeccable, spotless, and unmarred, right? Then you understand that your friend, the person that you are trying to know about sila, is a good person, but it takes time, right? So that's how you're gonna understand someone's virtue, right? Not just by casually deciding, judging that person, just in 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, by just going to temple, right? Just by looking at someone with calm behaviors and the way that person talks, you can decide this person is a good person who has a lot of sila. No, Buddha said take time, many years, many decades, and you have to be a wise person. You have to be mindful when you are trying to do that. So Buddha discourages people in making judgments about other people's sila this way. Number 2, purity, right? How did the Buddha ask us to look at someone's purity? Okay. Take a person who has dealings with someone else. Let me read the Pali one. Ida bhikkave puggalo puggalena saddin sanguharamano evan janati. Anyata ko ayamayasma ekena eko voharati. Anyata dvihi, anyata tihi, anyata sambahulehi. Vokkamati ayamayasma purima vohara, pachima vohara, aparisuddha voharu ayamayasma, nayamayasma parisuddha voharuti. Or Yatevako ayamayasma ekena eko voharati tata dvihi, tata tihi, tata sambaulihi, nayamayasma vokkamati, purima vohara, pachima voharam, parisuddha voharo, ayamayasma, na aparisuddha voharoti. Now, what is the way that the Buddha asks us to practice in understanding other people's purity? Let's take a look. The Buddha says, this individual deals with one person in one way. Then they deal with 2, 3, or many people, each in different ways. Or he or she or they are not consistent from one deal to the next. This person's dealings are impure, not pure. Now, this is a normal thing, right? When you get to know someone, and you can notice how that person interacts with other person. In the first place, you know, okay, this my friend or someone talks to or gets along with another person this way. But you also all of a sudden get to notice that that person gets along with other people differently. So there is kind of a inconsistency, right? And you get to know that. You see that she doesn't, have this purity. So purity only arises when someone gets along, when someone interacts, deals with other people in the same way, not differently. It's like the judgment, right? You think you are right, you think others are not right. You downplay on your mass, but you maximize, you amplify others' mass. This is what happens, right? So in the same way, you have to observe closely how your friend interacts with different individuals, with 1%, 2%, 3%. Then you will understand whether this person has consistency or not. If they have consistency, that means they have purity. Right? It takes time. That is what we call by Sangoharena Bhikkave Sucheya. Third one, it's about resilience, right? Apadasu Bhikkave Thamo Vedi Tabbu. Okay? Now, that means we can only understand someone's resilience when that person deals with troubles. Ida bhikkave ekacho jnati vyasanenava putto samano bhoga vyasanenava putto samano roga vyasanenava putto samano na iti parisamchik. Roga tatha bhuto ko ayam loka sannivaso tatha bhuto atta bhava patilabo yatha bhute loka sannivase yatha bhute atta bhava patilabe atta loka dhamma lokang anuparivattanti lokocha atta loka dhamme anuparivattanti labhocha alabhocha ayasocha yasocha nindacha pasansacha sukhancha dukkhanchati. So jnati vyasanena va putto samano bhoga vyasanena va putto samano roga vyasanena va putto samano sochati Kilamati, paridevati, urattalin kandati, sammohan apachati. Now, if you want to understand your friend is resilient or not, you can understand your friend's resilience by looking at this particular way. So what's the way that the Buddha asks us to check? This is the way. Take a person who experiences loss of family. This is what we call by, Jnati Vyasanena. Take a person who experiences loss of family. And Bhoga Vyasanenava, loss of wealth. Roga Vyasanenava, loss of health. But they don't reflect the people who are experiencing loss of family, loss of wealth, loss of health. The world is like that. This is what happens to us, right? When something happens that is inevitable, and then we get to understand this is inevitable, we have to understand it. Reincarnation or rebirth is like that. That's why the 8 worldly conditions, Attaloka Dhamma, right? We know there are 8 things that happen to all of us time to time. The 8, we don't know, or that person doesn't know, why the 8 earthly conditions revolve around the world. And the world revolves around the 8 worldly conditions. They are gain, loss, fame, disgrace, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Now, when someone doesn't understand that these 8 worldly conditions revolve around the world, and the world revolves around these 8, that is when that person can bounce back. That is when that person can be resilient. The opposite is, that means if someone understands this is inevitable and the world revolves around these 8, called labha, labha, isayasa, ninda, prasansa, sukha, dukkha, which means labha means gain, alabha means loss, fame, disgrace, yasa, ayasa, ninda, prasansa mean praise and blame, sukha, dukkha means pleasure and pain. So they all revolve around the world, and the world revolves around these 8. So if this understanding is ingrained, grown in someone, that person can bounce back very easily, right? Now, when a loss happens to us, regardless of monk, lay person, if we understand that particular loss is a part of these 8, then we are bouncing back faster. But if someone doesn't understand the losses are inevitable, that someone doesn't understand losses are something that we cannot escape, then that person can bounce back. So a trouble has to happen to someone to understand whether that person is resilient or not. So we understand someone's resilience by only looking at how they deal with their troubles. This is what we have to understand. Now see what they say. They sorrow, sochati, and pine, which means kilamati, and lament means paridevati, beating their breast or chest, urattaling kandati, and falling into confusion, sammohang apanchati, they faint. So because they don't know how to deal with this trouble, so they don't know how to bounce back, how to be resilient. But the opposite, someone who understands these worldly 8 things happen to us inevitably, we can't escape, that person easily bounce back. So that's the only way we can check someone's resilience. So don't try to judge other person's resilience just in a day or 2. It takes time for you to understand how they deal with their troubles. Number 4. This is very interesting. Sakachaya bhikkhave panya veditabba. Now this is very interesting, and as I told you at the beginning, you can get to know a person's wisdom only by discussion. Now I told you this discussion, the kind of like methodology in this discussion form is different than we think. Let me read. Ida bhikkhave puggalu puggalena sadding sakachaya mano evang janati. Yatako imassa ayasmatu ummaggo yatacha abhiniharo yata panya samudacharo duppanyo ayamayasma nayamayasma panyama tanki sahedu. Now initially what we have to understand here is you can get to know a person's wisdom by discussion, but only after a long time, not casually. Only when paying attention, not when inattentive, and only by the wise, not the witless, those who have no wisdom. That is what I said. But why did I say it? The Buddha says, take a person who is discussing with someone else. They come to know. So initially we have to discuss. They come to know. Judging by this individual's approach, that's called ummagga, by what they are getting at. Now the first thing is, if you are a wise person, if you want to check someone's wisdom, then you need to understand the sort of approach that person maintains in the discussion. Number one, ummagga. And by what they are getting at. This is what we call by abhiniharu. The aim of the scope, aim of the discussion where that person is trying to aim at. And panya samudachara. Panya samudacharo. Panya samudacharo means how they discuss a question. Now there are people who get really annoyed, who get really irritated when some questions are being asked. But a wise person doesn't get emotional. Wise person always looks at the both side of the question and discuss any question in a very comfortable, very wholesome way, skillful way. Ummagga, that means approach, and the aim of the discussion, that is called abhinihara, and the way how this person discusses a question, that means panya samudachara. And duppanyo panyama, that means they are witless, not wise. Now, not even these couple things, but also there is another thing to understand when it comes to check someone's wisdom. Tankissa hetu. Tatahi ayamayasma nacheva gambirang attapadang udaharati. Santang panitang atakkhavacharang nipunang pandita vedaniya. Yancha ayamayasma dhammang basati tassachana patibalu sankittenava vidharenava attang achikkitum desetum panyapetum pattapetum vivaritum vibhajitum uttanikatum duppanyo ayamayasma nayamayasma panyama. Sorry for reading a lot of Pali, but I want you to feel that I'm reading the proper authentic Pali so that you will understand that this is not deviating from our topic called judgment. Because Buddha says that we should not be judgmental in understanding someone's sila, ethics, purity called, socheya, and then Dhamma, that means resilience, and panya means wisdom. So why we are not supposed to be judgmental? Because we have to look at those individual perspectives by taking time, by taking different perspectives. So in addition to understanding the other person's approach and the aim and the way how that person discusses a question, one has to also check that person's another few criteria when it comes to understanding his or her wisdom. What are those things? This individual does not interpret a deep and meaningful saying that is peaceful. Peaceful means santang, sublime, panitang, beyond the scope of reason, atakka vachara, subtle, nipuna, comprehensible to the astute, pandita vedaniya. Now the problem is, if the person that you are trying to understand in terms of wisdom does not exhibit, does not show a characteristic like this, wherein she's not able to interpret a deep and a meaningful saying which is peaceful, sublime, beyond the scope of reason, subtle, comprehensible to the astute, then that person is not wise. So the opposite is wise. What's the opposite? The opposite is that person is able to interpret a deep and a meaningful saying which is peaceful, sublime, beyond the scope of reason, subtle, comprehensible to the astute. Not even this thing too. There is another addition to check that person's wisdom. That is what we call by Achikkitum, Desitum, Panyetum, Pattapetum, Vivaritum, Vibhajitum, Uttani Katum. That means someone who has wisdom should be able to discuss Dhamma in few other ways. What are those ways? Let me tell you. That person should be able to declare the meaning of particular Dhamma topics. Achikkana. Desana means that person should be able to teach it. Now, knowing and teaching are two different things, right? Now, this happens to many. There are people who are very educated, but when it comes to presentation, they are not really good. There may be some good presenters, they might not be very educated. So, presentation is such a very interesting thing that it's a skill. It doesn't happen just because you are educated, just because you know the subject. It's like the difference between the fully awakened Buddha, Samma Sambuddha, and the Pacceka Buddha. So Pacceka Buddhas can't present Dhamma very well, right? But the Samma Sambuddhas, those 28 Buddhas, they can express the Dhamma really well. They not even can express, they are also able to make other people understand the reality, Nibbana. But whereas Pacceka Buddhas are not that able. They are not. They know the Dhamma, but they are not able to present the same. That's why teaching, Achikkana, is, if you are a wise person, you should be able to declare the meaning, and Desana, you should be able to teach it. Panyapana is, you should be able to describe it. Describing is another talent. Pattapetum, you should be able to set it forth. You should be able to establish the Dhamma matters, Dhamma topics, Dhamma factors in the right place. Establishing Dhamma is such a very good skill, right? We hardly see such people. Vivaritum, you should be able to reveal. Now, when you listen to a Dhamma talk, if you find that the speaker is revealing something that was really hidden so far in your understanding, that is what we call by Vivaritum, right? Vibhajitum means explanation, or I would say analysis, right? Analyzing is a big thing too. A lot of people can analyze, right? Because you should be able to, you should be someone who should know many things so that you can analyze, Analysis is a big talent in the Dhamma when it comes to wisdom. Uttani Khatu means make it plain. Now, if you even listen to Dhamma, if you don't understand this thing that they are talking in plain language, in plain knowledge, that is also not good for your understanding. That is a talent. So everybody who should be wise should be able to declare the meaning, teach the subject, describe the subject, establish the real Dhamma matters at different points, should be able to disclose or reveal the Dhamma at different points based on the subjects you talk about, should be able to explain or analyze and make the deep Dhamma factors very shallow, or I would say make the Dhamma factors plain so that the audience can understand. So, if you are a wise person and if you want to check other person is wise or not, you should take time, should be attentive, and you have to check that person's knowledge or wisdom by discussing Dhamma in these particular ways. So let me tell you again, share with you again. You have to check that person's approach, aim, and the way that person discusses a question related to Dhamma. That is one side. Second side, you have to find out whether that person can interpret a deep and a meaningful Dhamma, which is peaceful, sublime, beyond the scope of reason, subtle, comprehensible to this astute, wise people. So that's the second ability. You have to check with that person. Number 3 is these skills. I should be able to, whether that person can declare the Dhamma, the meaning of Dhamma, teach, describe, establish, reveal or disclose, explain, analysis, or make the Dhamma plain, the deep path. So this is how you're going to look at anybody without being judgmental. So Buddha says, take time. That is where you're going to be non-judgmental. But you have a sort of subtle judging. It's okay, but you are not being judgmental with that. You just simply observe. Okay, now let me get back to our main topic. In our main topic, we've been talking, judging is no good because we try to transform our, judgmental nature into non-judgmental kind of a judging, right? So that non-judgmental judging, it's a subtle judging because we know every time we are judging. Even now you are judging. You are judging what I'm talking now. What's going to happen. You might be judging. But it's okay. But this is not a judging that you try to, you try to accumulate akusala, right? This is kusala. But you are trying to minimize your judging because that is called subtle judging, but not judgmental judging. Okay, and I told you what you need to do. You have to walk freely between attraction and aversion, likes and dislikes, right? Praise and blame. So you should be in the middle. That means the best practice to walk freely in terms of judgment is you are not taking side. You are not choosing one or the other. You are in the middle. You are going on the middle so that you are being non-judgmental. But I have to add a couple more things to the subject. Now, maintaining equanimity in regard of judgment, because you are being judgmental because you take sides. But when you are into upekha, or when you are into equanimity, you are trying to let go of your judgment. Now, it seems to us that when you want to maintain equanimity, it seems daunting because it's like that you are walking on a tight rope. Lean one way, right? So when you lean one way, you are kind of a moralizing busybody, right? On one side. When you lean the other way, you are an enabler, right? So these two, they are weighing you down, right? And above all, this ego, because we're trying to keep our ego the way how it is, we are in a big problem. We don't think that this is, we think that this is easy to be overcome in few steps, but it is not. That's why we have to understand that it takes some practice, right? It takes some insights, and we will have to fall down and get up again and again. This is not a 1 day, 2 month, 1 year practice. So we have to practice upekha to walk freely from judgment. We have to practice insight, self-awareness. At the same time, we will have to experience falling down and getting up again and again. So don't worry. Take them as, learning points to find out your judgment. Okay. Now, let me propose you a modest proposal for overcoming your judgmental nature in you. What's the proposal? Can you spend a couple hours without being judgmental? It's a modest proposal for you. But normally what I understand is that it's entirely possible. You won't make it past a few minutes without judging someone, right? Now, you might take 2 friends. One is a talkative friend. The other one is a complaining friend. Now, normally what happens when the talkative friend approaches you, you're kind of like thinking, oh my goodness, she's talking too much, right? So are judging that person. You are not trying to understand why this person is talking this much. You are not trying to see that person in his shoes, in her shoes, but rather than you are judging that person, this talkative person. When it comes to a complaining friend, you are trying to say, okay, so many complaints, and I'm not trying to accept. You are accepting, you are judging. More and more judgings arise because of that person. It's kind of a difficult thing. But we have to draw a distinction between judgment and the most important thing that where we have to direct us, that is discernment. Now, what is discernment? Perceiving the way things are. Vipassana is also the same definition. Perceiving. Try to perceive the things as they are. So this could also be said as a neutral observation, kind of a subtle judging, but it's okay because it's moral, it's wholesome, right? Now, let's take a look at what happens to us. So, in judgment, when you are in judgment, there is this element of dissatisfaction with the way how things appear to you. Now, if you take that talkative friend, you don't like that talkative friend because you have a different way of looking at it. So you are dissatisfied with what is going on with that person when you approach that, when she approaches you. When it comes to, okay, not even that. The second thing is that you have a desire the way how people should be. And you expect talkative friend shouldn't have talked this way. Talkative friend should not have approached you. So these are the two things. One thing is that you don't like to see how other people look at, how other people, spend their life, how other people, react, how other people spend their life. On the other hand, you don't feel good because people, they don't behave the way you want them to be, right? This is what we call in the Dhamma Sutta, yam piccang nalabati tampi dukkhaṃ. So now, if you take those two friends, talkative friend and the complaining friend, let's create two aspects. You can either go to judgment by not accepting that person and then trying to put your perspective in the first place, or you can use neutral observation. We call it subtle judgment, discernment. Which one you want to pick? Neutral judgment or discernment. That's what you should pick to be non-judgmental. If you take the complaining friend, why don't you accept? So if you don't want to accept that friend, if you don't want to accept what's going on, then you pick judgment. But if you want to accept, you just accept it. You don't try to bother you. And then you are picking on neutral observation or subtle judging. Because you are not dissatisfied with that person. You are accepting that person. You don't take it a big deal, who this person is. You try to allow other people's perspective in you. Because when you don't understand why this talkative friend is this, then you are always judging about that person. The moment you understand why other people talk like this, why other people behave like this, then your judgments will stop. But the moment you start judging why this person is talking this much, why this person is complaining too much, you are keep judging. You will never end up, because on one side you don't like what they do, on the other side you don't like because things that you like to happen don't happen the way you want. I talked about subtle judgment, right? Which I talk on a par with, discernment. Well, I mean, this is something I don't, always promote, but I can say, because we can get rid of all judgments, because there are some skillful levels where you can mentally observe. I would say we'll focus on discernment in terms of judgment, but not even improve any subtle judgment. Now, when you get to see someone who you think that person should lose some weight, but this is kind of a subtle judgment, okay? I'm trying to I'm trying to be fit in shape, but why this person is not losing pound? It's like a subtle judgment. What about you think that this person may have a gene problem, genetic problem, that's why this person can't, lose some pounds? What if that thinking arises in you? Then you try to understand that my subtle judging is no good. What about someone that you think is not, wearing a proper tie, appropriate tie that goes with his or with his teacher? You're always trying to think about his tie, kind of like not unmatching a tie. What if you get to understand maybe this person has a family issue, this person is kind of like going through a difficult situation, and you get to understand, I have subtle judging, I should not let it take me over. So the more you understand people, the better you are, the less you are judging about these people. So judgment is just a recipe for suffering. I don't need to bring that recipe for your suffering. Okay? And, okay, how can we practice non-judgmental judging? This is an interesting thing too. The first thing what you have to understand is you have to be mindful, because the moment you become mindful, you understand where and how you judge you and other people and events. Okay? And I would suggest a couple things for you to be non-judgmental, to practice non-judgmental judging. Number one, don't blame yourself, which is not a good thing, because you can blame yourself when you don't understand how to get over your fears. Number two, being mindful. Number three, depersonalize. Don't take things too seriously onto your side. Number four, look for basic goodness. Zoom out. Look at the bigger picture of everything. Don't take small things of events. And then try to, understand with an interconnectedness about things, like we're all same when it comes to needs, right? Number six, reframe, narrate your story or the event that where you are so much into judging. Look at your own, behavior when it comes to judging. Is it the reason why I'm judging? Educate yourself in many ways, mentally, physically, emotionally. Give the persons the benefit of the doubt. This is also interesting. And feel good about you. So you always have to look at accomplishments, right? And I wanted to, wrap this conversation by saying this thing. Now, what I suggest you to understand is that when it comes to practice non-judgmental judging, you have to think something this way. The more curious we are, the more humble we can become. Because a lot of people, they are not curious about other people in a proper way. They're curious about why they are different from me, right? So the more curious we are, the more humble we can become. So curiosity and humbleness, they go hand in hand. The more humble we are, the less judgmental we are of others. So when you develop curiosity about why other people like this and that, then you will become humble, because you will understand why they are this and that. Rather, you put your own perspective in them. And when you become humble by understanding, because you have curiosity, then you will become less judgmental about other people, because you understand what's going on with these people. Because a lot of people, they judge others because they think they are good and others are bad. Their views are good, others' views are bad. Their way of thinking is good, others' way of thinking is not good. They try to always downplay on them. They try to amplify, the faults and, shortcomings of other people. So we have to sort of look at us different from them, also look at them differently from us. We have to understand why they are like that. There are different reasons for them to behave this way and that. Okay, so with that, I wanted to share good karmas with the departed relatives and the deities. Today, we've been talking about how to stop, judging, because judging is no good. So what we have to practice is non-judgmental judging. In other words, we call it discernment. Even subtle judging also no good for us to become better people. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating in all these ways be shared by all the departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Idamme ñāti nang hotu sukhita huntu ñātayo. Also, we're going to share good karmas with the deities and nagas who protect all of us. May all the deities and nagas share in all these good karmas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavatacha ammihi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhang tuluka sasanang chirang rakkhang tudesanang chirang rakkhang tumang paranti. Finally, let's make a great wish. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating so far help all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now I'm going to be blessing you with couple stanzas. Please receive the blessings. Abhivadana silisse nichang vaddha pachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti me vacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati samijjatu. Please stay tuned with Dhamma Paṭisota discussion series, because we've been doing a couple episodes of Dhamma Paṭisota with different guests, and there will be more discussions, interviews coming up. Stay tuned with that. Also, take care of yourself. Continue to take care of yourself. Have a good night. Have a good day.